Today we're going to be looking at the Demi Grow, a larger size tandem-capable model from Nuna. This is the third of Nuna's models that we've now had the chance to look at, and while both of the other models had, in our opinion, specific design deficiencies that we found less than appealing, the overall quality of engineering was quite decent, making us very excited to get a look at the Demi Grow as well, which is one of their most popular models, and which seemed from pictures to be aimed at that sweet spot between luxury and terrain capability that a lot of our favorite strollers in the past have occupied. In this video then, we're going to go over the Demi Grow from head to toe, looking at the model in terms of child comfort, ease of functionality, mechanical longevity and drivability, as well as defining the lifestyle and parenting needs that this stroller will and won't be capable of fulfilling. So let's get started then, kicking off with some stats. The Demi Grow clocks in at around 13 kilos in its lightest configuration and folds down to 89 by 61 by 60 centimeters. It can carry 22.6 kilos per seat and 5 kilos in the removable shopping basket. Online, I see a lot of reviews extolling the large weight capacity in the seat, so I'd like to pause here and make a point that I've made several times in the past with other strollers, that 22.6 kilos is a 7-year-old, which, as I hope is obvious, won't even come close to fitting in the Demi Grow's seat. And that brings us on to child comfort and seat size, where the Demi Grow is definitely on the small side as far as full-sized models go, with a width that varies between roughly 28 and 33 centimeters, depending on whether one is using the winter insert, and a total length of around 98 centimeters, judged by adding up the lengths of the seat back, baseboard, and leg rest, which is less than many much smaller models, and which places the maximum age for full comfort, in my opinion, at around 2.5 or maybe 3 years old. Note here that the short length is mostly the result of having a completely flush canopy. Design-wise, the Demi Grow has a fixed frame bucket seat with an adjustable leg rest, meaning that the backboard is not adjustable in relation to the baseboard, as one needs for newborns, but which also allows for a simpler and sturdier mechanical design less likely to develop problems over time. As far as the textiles are concerned, the Demi Grow's primary emphasis is on softness and deep padding, as well as convertibility, rather than wear resistance and being easy to wipe clean. And while overall I rather like the materials used, one thing I dislike is the crinkly sounds that come from the underlayer of the canopy. With regards to sun coverage, the Demi Grow has a minimalistic sun flap at the front, but also uses a longer, looser sun hood extension with ventilation windows zipped into the center of the canopy. When it comes to parent comfort, the Demi Grow's handle range is on the high end, adjustable between 104 and 111 centimeters, but realize that it will be necessary to use the handle at its highest elevation in tandem mode in order to get clearance for your legs, and may thus be somewhat uncomfortable for shorter people. As far as a shopping basket is concerned, the model offers a couple of options, with both a larger fixed basket and a secondary removable basket that can be used in lieu of a tandem option. The removable basket is nice, as are several other minor extra features on the Demi Grow, including, as I already mentioned, the climate convertible seat and the long sunshade, as well as an all-in-one seat liner plus storm cover and a pocket organizer zipped into the foot of the bassinet. Though please note that you shouldn't let these little additional tidbits divert your attention from evaluating whether the larger, more important mechanical characteristics of the model work for you. And in addition, I'd personally trade several of these features out for a rotatable bumper bar, and also you should know that whether or not you get a lot of this extra stash depends on where in the world you're purchasing the stroller. As far as folding is concerned, while it is possible to fold the Demi Grow with the seat attached in the forwards facing position, the folded package is a bit on the bulky side, and the model seems meant more to be used as a 2 if not 3-piece fold. It's also a bit heavy as far as strollers of this sort are concerned, and will not be ideal for those living in an upstairs apartment without an elevator, or for those with limited trunk space. When it comes to driving, the Demi Grow's 7-inch front wheels are very small for a model of this size, identically proportioned to their smaller size daily model, the Triv, and are surpassed by a large majority of competing models, which limits the stroller mainly to urban and smooth suburban conditions, and provides only limited capability to deal with rougher terrain, such as cobblestones, lighter parks, gravel, and so on. On the other hand, as a rear-loading tandem model, the Demi Grow at least doesn't lose any of its limited terrain capabilities in two-child mode, as front-loading models do, though the trade-off for being a rear-loaded model is a loss of basket space and the need to control your steps to avoid bumping the lower child. And even with the handle fully extended, note that fully reclining the lower seat is not an option while walking. Okay, let's move on to the Demi Grow's mechanics then, starting off with the handle, the folding system, and the overall structure of the model, all of which is actually quite sturdy and pleasantly conservative with regards to the type and simplicity of the mechanisms involved. Both the telescopic handle extension mechanism and the folding system use a wire and pin setup, employing a minimum of internal components and allowing for easy activation up at the top. And despite the unique shape of the central joint that might have suggested otherwise, the actual folding lock is also built simply, with mostly metal components, and built in a thin, flat manner to keep the weight low while directing the main pressures of driving and tipping towards the narrow edges of the locking pieces for maximum strength. The primary weakness of this sort of a system sometimes comes with steering, where pressure is applied to that flat vertical system from the side, which is why having strong horizontal support is crucial for this sort of setup. And the Demi Grow tackles this admirably, with 5 solid crossbars, even without considering that the removable shopping basket and seats or bassinets themselves also add horizontal strength when attached. If you're curious, a good example for how this can be done wrong is a stokkebiet. Moving on down to the rear frame of the model, the first thing to make note of is the suspension, which is sufficient for the size of the model since it's rear loading and thus doesn't need the extra tipping help required for front loading tandems. But it isn't going to offer any real extras in terms of terrain capability, as one gets with some competing models like the UPPAbaby Vista V2 for example, and which of course matches the Demi Grow's somewhat smaller sized front wheels. For some reason, Nuna has built a function for adjusting the tension of the suspension into the model, but I personally feel that the loosest position is the correct tension, and see no real reason for having the tighter position at all. And please note here that this is a mechanism prone to rust in the long run, so if you get the Demi Grow, either lubricate it or keep it in the looser position so you don't get stuck with the tighter one. As far as the brake system is concerned, it's wire-based and without an adjustment screw, which is not my favorite sort of setup, as over time rust and grit buildup often alters the tension in the wire, especially if you're not good with lubrication. When it comes to the wheels and wheel mountings, the foam-filled tires are quite nice, strong against wear, and the use of flat sides on the axles keeps the rotation entirely within the wheels, which is also good, because if you have problems, it's just a matter of swapping out the wheels. The Demi Grow incorporates a couple of extra features here, in the form of mudguards and transparent walls on the back facings of the rims, intended to protect the fingers of curious children sitting in the tandem seat. But note that the downside of these features is that the transparent walls are likely to get quite ugly over time, and the mud flaps will collect snow and lock up the wheels in the winter if you live somewhere colder. Looking lastly at the front end, despite the terrain limitations created by the model's relatively small front wheels that I already mentioned, everything else checks out a-okay, with standard suspension built into the front forks, a sturdy swivel locking system, and well-built connection points between the forks themselves and the front wheel housings, which is crucial for preventing wobbling problems down the road. On the Demi Grow, there are several elements that mitigate pressure from the axles here that might have otherwise worn down the housings, one of which being ball bearings, right at the entrance to the housings. Using ball bearings here makes for a very tight connection, but be aware that it is also a place requiring lubrication to keep the axles from rusting within the bearings. And note also that it may well be necessary to swap out the bearings after a few years. So, should you get the Demi Grow? Maybe. It's certainly not bottom of the pack as far as tandem strollers go, but it's not my favorite model either. On the positive side, the overall structure of the model is pretty solid. It has a high seat and a generous basket, and its rear-loaded design makes it more maneuverable as a two-child stroller than front-loading models. On the negative side, the small dimensions of the seat combined with relatively poor terrain capabilities make the model's size and weight a disadvantage in comparison to competing models when used for only one child. And as a dedicated two-child stroller, the Demi Grow does not offer even close to the same comfort and capability that you would get with a side-by-side model in terms of drivability, equal access to your children, or the increased storage capacity that such models offer. As a side note here, at least with the manufacturers I've spoken with, you should know that only about 10% of people buying tandem models wind up getting that tandem seat in the long run. So if you're one of those people already pre-establishing the time horizons of your second child before the first arrives, and don't feel bad, I can tell you from a lot of experience that you're not alone, then the truth is that life rarely works out exactly as you intend it to. In the end, I suppose buying the Demi Grow comes down to price for me, and at full price, I personally would go for something else. But then, Nuna has a tendency to do a lot of package deals and discounts, and at a reduced price, I suppose it would be worth grabbing, as long as your needs match what it offers, that is. Note that we plan to do a larger tandem model comparison video in the coming weeks, so if you'd like to see this model compared against other strollers from the top end of the market, just keep an eye on our channel. In any case, we hope you found this video interesting, and if you did, we ask that you subscribe, as it helps us to continue making videos in the future. In addition, if you are currently shopping for a stroller, we have a buyer's guide on our Patreon page which lists a wide range of models that we recommend, with a lot of technical and lifestyle related information. You can find it by following the link in the description. Thank you.